she didn't know at the time. That was like a tether to reality. God never let me forget who I was. And that was a radical thought to me, and I did not want to hear it at first. When I first heard it, it really kind of made me angry.
The Marriage, Family, and Life Conference is coming June 20th through 22nd. Learn more and register at urbanfamilytalk.com.
How long did you hold on to that? Because there was some report that said you were a Native American on your Texas bar license and that you said you were a Native American on some documents when you were a professor at Harvard. Like, why'd you do that?
So it's what I believe. You know, that's, like I said, it's what I learned from my family.
I love my brother dearly. I want the best for him. I want the best for Pete. And this story, this narrative of the family shutting from the family couldn't be further from the truth.
This president inherited an economy that was moving in the right direction. He should thank his soul that it was Barack Obama who put it together.
When we deposed Jim Comey, he said all the way up until the day he was fired, May 9th, 2017, he told us they had no evidence of any type of conspiracy.
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged. An informed patriot is what we want.
Welcome to American Family Radio's Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio.
Muscular Christianity.
Where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and politics.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Brian Fisher.
Howdy! Welcome to a brand new week of broadcasting on American Family Radio. And that howdy, a special emphasis to say howdy back to those listeners that are greeting us on Facebook with the term howdy. Howdy right back at you. I'm back on Facebook, by the way. They didn't interrupt our live stream last week, but now they've let me back on Facebook, so I've been able to post and comment on Facebook, which I could not do for 7 days. It's good to be back. We're taking bets in the production team about how long it's going to be before I get banned again. But anyway, for 1 or 2 glorious days, I am free from the Facebook archipelago. Brian Fisher is my name. Your host, congenial, convivial, amiable, and effervescent.
As always.
And you, my listeners, are likewise congenial, convivial, amiable, and effervescent.
As always.
Great to have you in the conversation. A lot we're going to get to, so let's just jump right into it. Just want to remind you that we do have podcasts. You don't get a chance to catch the program live. You can go to afr.net, and there you can pick up a podcast of any broadcast. They go up about 10, 15 minutes after the program is over. You can access the program, listen to it, or watch it at your leisure, afr.net. You can also live audio stream Focal Point there at afr.net. We have apps for your phones, Android and iPhone, so you can listen to the program on the go. Don't have to miss a single minute. Even when you're out there running errands, you can get those likewise at afr.net.
Did you mention the YouTube page already?
Did not.
Okay.
You can also catch us on YouTube, live streaming at YouTube.
Yeah, quite a list you have going on there.
Yeah. And don't forget also that on Facebook and on YouTube, the programs are not only live streamed, but they're recorded as they're live streamed and then uploaded to the Facebook page or to the YouTube channel, so you can, that's another way essentially to do a podcast of the program. Speaking of Google, this is hilarious to me. I mean, it's not hilarious if you're a victim of this, if you got caught up in this, but Google has got this serious cloud thing going. That's what I use for my word processing. A lot of people, and I use a Chromebook. And one of the reasons that I use a Chromebook, it's made by Google. One of the reasons I use it is it is impervious to viruses. A Chromebook cannot get viruses because you don't download programs to your Chromebook. So all of the programs that you use are in the cloud. Your word processing is in the cloud. Gmail or your email in the cloud. So you can't get a virus on your computer. However, there is a downside. If that cloud platform goes down, your Gmail account can go down, YouTube could go down, and this is what I'm talking about. Some Nest users, a lot of people use Google Nest, which is a way you can control your thermostat, etc. And when the Google Cloud went down, people found out that their Nest branded smart home products wouldn't work. They couldn't open the front door to their own house.
Wow.
They locked themselves out of their own house. They couldn't control their thermostats. They couldn't control their smart locks. They couldn't control their cameras. So they couldn't get inside their house. They couldn't use their AC. And they couldn't even monitor their babies because the cameras inside were not working. So that's the downside of having advances in technology. Another story that I came across, number of Americans working in their 70s is skyrocketing. Well, I guarantee you, if I live long enough, I will be working into my 70s. You know why? Because I love my job. This is the favorite job that I've ever had. I don't know what I would do if I didn't get up in the morning and go to work. You know, my goal, as I tell you, my goal every day is to be the hardest working man in conservative talk radio. If I don't have a job, how am I going to be the hardest working guy if I don't even have a job to do?
It's
anyway.
my favorite job you've ever had, too. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love it. So, well, thank you. And it's great to have, this team, we've been together for 9+ years and just enjoyed working together. But here's a story on QZ.com. Big increase, the number of people in the U.S. working into their 70s, up to 15% now, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, are still working into their 70s. I have no interest in quitting work. I guarantee you, I would drive Debbie just absolutely bonkers, crazy. She would make me go out and sit in the garage just to give herself some freedom. So another story here today about mysterious, unexplained flashes of light on the moon. And people want to know what that is. I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that unexplained flash on the moon is the implosion of the Beto O'Rourke campaign for the presidency of the United States. It just blew completely up. And then this deal from L.A., these homeless camps, and we could go into a discursus on why you even have these homeless camps. It used to be that you could incarcerate people that were so mentally ill that they could not care for themselves. You had a place that you could put them. They could be mentally ill. They could be classified. Their families could go and get authorization from a judge to put them in a place where they could be cared for. And then the liberals, in all of their benighted wisdom, said, no, we can't have that. We can't have crazy people have a place to sleep, a place to live, people taking care of them, making sure they're fed, making sure they're clothed. No. We can't have that. So they turned them all loose. It's been illegal for I don't know how long, since the 80s, to put these people in any kind of a residential setting. So where are they going to go? They go out on the street. Now the problem in Los Angeles, it's all over the place. San Francisco's running crazy with homeless encampments. Seattle is the same. Now L.A., city workers in L.A. City Hall are getting infested and are getting diseases from rats that are connected to the homeless camps. They got homeless camps right outside L.A. City Hall, and these rats carry diseases, typhus and other sorts of things. So you got a lot of city workers now in L.A. City Hall are getting diseases from these homeless encampments. You want to see political correctness run completely, absolutely amok? This is crazy. And the member of the Golden State Warriors, this is my team, is to blame for this. Oh, man. You talk about overdrawing the race card thing here. The NBA is going to stop using the word owner for teams.
What?
Because so many of the players, like 68% of the players in the NBA are African American. Now, they're making millions and millions and millions. They're hardly an oppressed class. But people are saying, oh, no, you can't use the word owner. That's got racial overtones. So we're going to have to find something else 76ers are calling them managing partners. Steve Ballmer of the LA Clippers is the chairman, and so forth and so on. That's just crazy. So anyway, I don't know where it's going to stop, but it hasn't stopped yet. All right, now very quickly, let's turn our attention to the Word of God. There are a number of things a number of myths out there that are completely blown up by the passage of Scripture we are going to be in for basically for all of this week. And the book I'm talking about is the Song of Solomon. And I want to give you just kind of a quick summary of what we learn from the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs, as it's put in the Hebrew. Now, as you may be aware, this is a love song. It describes, it exalts the love between the king, Solomon, and his bride, who worked in the fields. In fact, when they met on a lunch break. All the workers were taking their lunch break from harvesting grapes, and Solomon is cruising through his vineyards, and there he sees her. She became the love of his life, and she was dark brown. She wasn't like one of the palace beauties whose skin was cream-colored and ivory, because she worked out in the sun. And for that reason, a lot of people just ignored her, overlooked her, but Solomon saw something in her, and she became the love of his life. So it celebrates married love, the love between a husband and his wife. And here's what she says, beginning of Song of Solomon 1. And again, this is kind of PG-13, so I just want you to be aware. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, she says, for your love is better than wine. Your name is oil poured out. When she heard his name, it just kind of lit her up. And so she says, draw me after you. Let's go for a walk in the woods. Let us run. I will come with you. The king, she says, has brought me into his chambers, into his bridal chambers. Then there are these friends that are observing their love affair, and they're cheering them along. We will exult and rejoice in you. We will extol your love more than wine. Rightly do they love you. And this is where she says, I am very dark but lovely. Do not gaze on me because I am dark, because the sun has looked upon me. So that's why she was brown, deep tan, because she worked out in the fields for a living. She wasn't inside the palace, cooped up. Remember, Esther spent a year getting pampered with oils and stuff like that. This Solomon's bride didn't have a chance to do that. She worked for a living. And she refers to Solomon, verse 7, as the one whom my soul loves. And then Solomon says in verse 8 of chapter 1, if you do not know, O most beautiful among women. So he referred to her as the most beautiful among women. One of the things I tell young guys is that, look, it does not matter how beautiful your fiancé or your bride or your wife is to other people. That doesn't matter. It only matters that she is beautiful to you, that she is beautiful in your eyes. And here Solomon saw beauty in someone that everybody else was overlooking, everybody else was ignoring. But he saw something in her that other people missed, and she was beautiful in his eyes. All right, well, let's take these things to prayer. We're going to make this a day of prayer for every marriage in the land. I'm going to pray for every marriage in your world and in my world, so please join me. Lord God, I pray this day for every marriage in my circle of friends and in this nation. May each marriage know the blessing of your Spirit and be filled with the fruit of the Spirit of love, joy, and peace. Deepen intimacy between husband and wife in body and soul and spirit. I pray that the love of each husband for his wife and each wife for her husband will be more delightful than wine. May the very mention of each other's name be a pleasing aroma, like the fragrance of perfume poured out. I pray that each husband will see his wife as beautiful with eyes like doves. May she be like a lily among thorns when he compares her to others, a rose of Sharon and a lily of the valley. I pray that he will protect her and spread his banner of love over her. May each wife see her husband as handsome, delightful, and strong. I pray that she will delight to take a place of protection under his shade, be faint with love for him, find security under his banner of love. In Jesus' name.
Jesus answered him, "If anyone loves me, he will keep my word." My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. We live in an era currently where spirituality is in vogue. Christ following is not. Some even claim to love Jesus while simultaneously rebelling against his word and encouraging others to rebel similarly. But Jesus said it himself, "If you love me, you will obey me. Whoever does not love me does not obey my words." Make no mistake about it. To love Jesus is to obey him. You cannot love Jesus and disobey him. If you're living in open rebellion against Jesus' word, you're not following Jesus as he's revealed himself in Scripture. You're following a God you've created.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
This is Dr. Richard Land, President of Southern Evangelical Seminary. Welcome to Bringing Every Thought Captive. This week we commemorate a great American victory in World War II, the Battle of Midway, which was fought June 4th through 7th, 77 years ago. The Battle of Midway was just as decisive in the Pacific as the Normandy landings were in Europe. After the devastating Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese had gone from victory to victory in the Pacific. The Japanese then decided to attack Midway and to destroy the rest of the American Pacific Fleet. Unknown to the Japanese, American naval intelligence had broken enough of the Japanese code to discover the Japanese were going to attack Midway. Admiral Chester Nimitz sent his 3 carriers to lie in wait just east of the island and ambushed the Japanese invasion force. When the Americans attacked the Japanese invasion force, the torpedo bombers were virtually obliterated. 36 of 42 American pilots were shot down, but they succeeded in diverting the Japanese defenses. When the American dive bombers attacked, they sank 3 Japanese carriers in less than 10 minutes. An additional Japanese carrier was sunk later in the battle. In a matter of minutes, the tide of war in the Pacific had turned. The rest of the war, the Japanese would be on defense, not offense. The Japanese lost 5,000 men, 4 carriers, 1 heavy cruiser, and 322 planes, while the U.S. lost 307 men, 1 carrier, 1 destroyer, and 147 aircraft. Ironically, Japanese pilots who had attacked Pearl Harbor got to enjoy their tremendous victory for just under 6 months until the vast majority of them died at Midway in June 1942. I ask you to pause for a moment of silence in prayer for the brave sailors and pilots who defended our freedom at Midway on those fateful days in June 1942. Why did we win at Midway? I believe it was God's providence, not merely fortuitous circumstances. God blessed America in World War II because we were a God-honoring nation. Will we receive the same blessings today? This is Richard Land.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on American Family Radio.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point on American Family Radio, the home of muscular Christianity. You know, in the Song of Solomon, reading a little verse here from chapter 1, verse 15. Again, this is the guy who is besotted. He's infatuated. He's in love with his bride. And he says this, "Behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves." So he's saying these things to her, whispering sweet nothings to her. You know, I made an effort to do this one time. I was just thinking about it. It's okay, I got to come up with something that's really romantic that I can say to Debbie. Because one of the things I love about her is I love her eyes. Her eyes are brown, and I just love them. And so I tried to come up with some kind of really romantic expression that I could use with her. And so this is what I came up with. I said, "Babe, your eyes are like limpid pools of liquid amber." And rather than swooning, she just laughed out loud. So that didn't work. But it doesn't change the fact that her eyes are, in fact, like limpid pools of liquid amber. So anyway, enough of that. We'll get back into more of this stuff as we go through the book of the Song of Songs. All right.
I thought she had blue eyes.
Oh, no. Brown.
Okay.
Beautiful brown eyes. All right. You know, here's the latest deal that's coming. I want to make you aware of this, give you a heads up on this. There's an effort on the part of our Silicon Valley friends to start voting by phone. They want people to be able to vote from their phones. This would be an absolute catastrophe. You think we have voter fraud right now? That would be off the charts voter fraud. So that thing has got to be squelched before it ever gets out of the starting gate. And one other item on political matters, we monitor the entire spectrum. In the city of Idlewild, Southern California, their mayor, they've had the same mayor since 2014. He is Maximus Mighty Dog Mueller II, or Max for short. Idlewild has been electing a canine mayor since 2011. Well, since 2012. So the first one was, I don't know, Maximus Mighty Dog Mueller I, I guess. A beautiful golden lab retriever. He's the mayor currently of Idlewild, Southern California. The election, anybody can run. You can put your pet in there. They had 13 dogs and 2 cats that ran for this office the first time that they tried it. And they work these dogs. I mean, this is not just a ceremonial position. So Maximus goes to the annual Christmas tree lighting. He has to put in an appearance at the Independence Day parade. He's got to be at the street festivals. He even goes to local hospitals, schools, and nursing homes. Sometimes they even have Mayor Max make house calls to residents that need a visitor from the mayor.
I heard he made a new dog park for the middle of the city and made the cats pay for it.
You know, we were talking in our meeting this morning about cats and dogs, and you know, I've never been a cat person, not my whole life. We've had cats growing up, but until we got our little male cat, you know, and Rob knows what I'm talking about. But our little buddy, he's my little buddy. He's my buddy cat. He's the first cat I've ever gotten attached to. Dogs, you know, I've told you before, the reason I don't have a dog is I'm just way too lazy. If I had servants, I would have a dog. But I would want a servant, you know, and you know, I could make the kids go out and do poop patrol in the yard, and take Ebony for a walk around the block when we had a dog. But I'm not going to do that stuff. And I don't have servers to do it for me. And I flat out guarantee you Debbie's not going to be out there doing it for me. So I just said, nah, no dog, not till I can have servants. All right. I want to mention, and Jeff, would you check and see if my column is up at afa.net?
I did check on Debbie's eyes. You were right. They're brown. But you knew that already.
No, they are liquid pools.
Oh, yeah.
They are limpid pools of liquid amber. You know, if you're going to talk about them, get it right at least, will you?
I think I heard Debbie laugh.
Anyway.
Yes, your column is up.
Okay, I got a column that I would encourage you to go and read. It has to do with what Donald Trump has done, which will be bizarre to a lot of people. And it was a surprise to me because Donald Trump had not done this for the first 2 years of his presidency. What President Trump has done is recognize LGBTQ Pride Month. And not only has President Trump recognized it, he is leading the crusade to normalize a global campaign to normalize homosexuality. Yes, you heard me right. There is a global campaign that's being run out of the White House, and Trump signed on to it this morning or yesterday, sent out a glowing tweet about all of this. Please join me in this global crusade to get rid of any kind of public policies against homosexuality. And he hadn't done this for the first 2 years. He's the first Republican president that has ever done it. Bill Clinton invented June as Pride Month in 1999, but George Bush never signed on to it, never said anything about it. Barack Obama, of course, couldn't help himself. He was all over the thing. But the first 2 years of the Trump administration, he didn't do it. So that obviously creates a question about, what his motive is. But this is just a catastrophic mistake on his part, and that's what my column is about. Now, my guess is President Trump probably has some people whispering in his ear, and he's listening to the wrong people. My guess is he's listening to Jared and Ivanka, or as they are known in D.C., Javanka, probably listening to them, and they somehow have persuaded him that there is some kind of political advantage in doing this. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there isn't. I mean, if Javanka think that Donald Trump is going to make any headway with the LGBT community by supporting Gay Pride Month, they haven't been paying attention. This is not going to cut any ice with the LGBT activist crowd whatsoever. In fact, Michelangelo Signorile, he's a gay journalist. I've had a number of conversations with him over the time. And he said this. I mean, he came right out of the chute in the Daily Beast, calling his message in support of Pride Month breathtakingly disingenuous because of his administration's systematic assault on LGBT rights. His celebration of Pride Month is fraudulent and as calculated as his claim to be fighting to decriminalize homosexuality. The goal, he said, is less about getting much of the community's backing, which will be near impossible. So this gay journalist said, look, if he thinks he's going to get any support, any backing from the LGBTQ crowd by celebrating Gay Pride Month, by launching this global campaign to decriminalize homosexuality, he has got another think coming. And this is what President Trump tweeted out. My administration has launched a global campaign. This is the president himself tweeting this, a global campaign to decriminalize homosexuality. And he says, I invite all nations to join us in this effort. All right, so that's what I'm writing about in the column, and I would encourage you to take a minute or two to read it. The point that I make here, it's the same thing that our president, Tim Wildman, said in a statement that he released this morning, that homosexuality is simply not something that the president should celebrate, nor should the United States celebrate it. I'm adding that. Tim's statement was that this is not something the president should celebrate. His quote goes on, it's unnatural, it's unhealthy, and it's immoral. And our president went on to say that he urges President Trump to stand by his opposition to the Equality Act, which would be the end of religious liberty as we know it if it were to pass. So I don't know what's motivating Donald Trump to do this thing. It's not going to cut him any ice with the LGBTQ community. We've already seen that from Michelangelo Signorile. They just have nothing but contempt for President Trump. They have nothing but contempt for what he says here. They think it's disingenuous. They think he doesn't mean it. And they're already telling him this is not going to cut any ice with us whatsoever. And I think what Donald Trump is forgetting here is that 81% of evangelicals voted for him in 2016. 81% of white evangelicals voted for President Trump in 2016. I will flat out guarantee you that 81% of evangelicals are not going to be down with President Trump using the moral authority of the United States to promote sexually abnormal behavior around the world. They're just not going to be into this. They're not going to support this. And this will not expand his base. I mean, the reason you would do something like this would be because you think it will expand your base. It won't. It won't expand the base. It will only erode it. And here's the risk that President Trump is running. This is why I'm hoping somebody will talk him out of this, because if he sticks with this, if he becomes the cheerleader for the worldwide campaign to promote homosexuality as something that's normal, something that ought to be celebrated, it's going to dampen his support. It's going to diminish his support base, might even extinguish the enthusiastic support that he has enjoyed. You know, many observers have made the observation that Donald Trump is the only one that can destroy the attachment that his base has to him. His base is attached to him. Their attachment is fervent. And, you know, the point of these pundits is it wasn't the media that caused Donald Trump's base to fall in love. They did everything in the world they could to demonize him, vilify him, criticize him. There was something about Trump that resonated with the average American voter and with 81% of evangelicals. They are not going to be down with Trump being the worldwide leader of a campaign to normalize homosexuality. And so he could see his support, his enthusiasm begin to diminish. Now, we supported Donald Trump, those of us that did, voted for him, as I did in 2016, because of his embrace of religious liberty, because of his defense of the sanctity of human life, and because of his appointment of federal judges who apply the Constitution instead of rewriting it. That's why a lot of us voted for him. That's why a lot of us have continued to support him in office. And only Trump can do something if he begins to walk away from this, and this would be a big step away from that, because this is a threat to religious liberty. This campaign to normalize homosexual behavior is a threat to religious liberty. And we can't ever forget that the free exercise of religion is embedded in the Constitution as the first right in the Bill of Rights. It's the first one. You got some other great rights that are in there. Freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom to petition the government for the redress of grievances. All those are terrific. But it starts with the right to the free exercise of religion. Now, the judges that President Trump has nominated and appointed to the federal bench, they know that you can scour the Constitution from the first page to the last. You can read it upside down and backwards. You can read it in Sanskrit, and you will never find a single solitary mention articulated in the Constitution of any right whatsoever to engage in sodomy. It's just not in there. There's a constitutional right to the free exercise of religion. There is not a constitutional right to the free exercise of sodomy. It's just not in there, which means, from a constitutional basis, very simply, if you've got a conflict between the homosexual agenda and religious liberty should win every single time, hands down. And this is, I think, what Donald Trump is missing, you know, and what we've seen on the other hand is when you have this clash between religious liberty and the gay agenda, whether it's wedding vendors, whether it's adoption agencies, whether it's bathroom policies, whether it's employment policies, when these two agendas, religious liberty and the gay agenda, come into conflict, one side or the other's got to win. I mean, either males are going to be able to use women's bathrooms or they're not. Either adoption agencies are going to be able to restrict adoption to heterosexual couples who are married to each other, or they or not. It's binary. It's either or. Somebody wins and somebody loses. And I think Donald Trump is still kind of naive about this. He thinks that everybody can get along. He thinks that both sides can get everything they want. Both sides can have their, quote, rights, end quote, and nothing bad will happen. But it's impossible for everybody to get what they want, because these rights, the agenda of the homosexual crowd and religious liberty, these things are in eternal mortal combat. One side's going to win and the other side is going to lose. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, every single advance of the homosexual agenda comes at the expense of religious liberty. When the LGBT agenda advances, religious liberty retreats every single time. And one side or the other has to prevail in the end. You know, and what happens with the gay agenda, people get forced to do things they don't want to do. and forced to violate their conscience. Tammy Bruce said, look, if you force a baker, for instance, to bake a cake that violates his conscience, that's tyranny. And if you force him to bake a cake that he doesn't want to bake, you force him to do work that he does not want to do, that is slavery. And so because of that, because homosexuality is immoral, because it's unnatural, because it's unhealthy, it is a practice that no rational society, including the United States, should ever embrace, ever celebrate, ever subsidize, or ever celebrate. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Here's Twyla Brace, president of CCHF, with today's Health Freedom Minute.
Microsoft says older operating systems in medical and implantable devices are vulnerable to intrusion and manipulation by hackers, but patching old systems is time-consuming and expensive. Here's the surprising problem. It takes the medical device manufacturers so long to get the devices approved that by the time they get put in, often the operating systems are ancient. They're out of date. Here's another surprise. Nearly 83,000 deaths are suspected from FDA-approved devices over the last 10 years. Since FDA approval does not guarantee patient safety, should FDA approve devices sooner rather than later to protect against the dangers of hacking.
Learn more about protecting your healthcare choices. Sign up for the CCHF Weekly e-News Update at cchfreedom.org. That's cchfreedom.org.
Target is in the bullseye because of its transgender bathroom policy.
A petition by the American Family Association to boycott Target now surpassing 1 million signatures and counting.
People have their own beliefs and stuff, but what can it hurt? What can it hurt? What can it hurt?
It hurts our daughters.
It hurts you. It hurts our families.
It hurts me.
It hurts all of us.
Sign the petition to boycott Target at afa.net.
Thoughts of the child you were carrying keep pouring over in your mind. You wish things could be different, and the loss is overwhelming. A deep, unrelenting sadness overshadows your days, and you wonder if you will feel whole again. There is hope and healing from a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline, 866-482-LIFE, and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I was finishing undergrad and got credit cards because I couldn't work full-time, so that started the credit card journey for me.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
And then when I got married, we combined our credit card debt, and it became impossible to pay off on our own. At that point, I was like, I don't know where to turn. And then I found Trinity.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
I initially was scared to call, and immediately I felt relief. I mean, in a matter of 3 years, we've already paid down $20,000 in credit card debt, which is huge.
Call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813. That's 1-800-788-1813.
American Family Radio. You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point on American Family Radio, the home of the fastest 60 minutes in American media. Buckle up, heading for the home stretch here. Fox News continues to dominate the cable ratings. CNN continues to sink like a rock. For 35 straight months, Fox News is the most watched network across all of basic cable. That's 3 straight years. It's been the number one cable news network. CNN continuing to drop. Hannity got 3.1 million viewers over the course of the month. The most watched show on CNN, Cuomo Primetime, finished 25th overall. In other words, the best program that CNN has is the 25th watched program on cable. And that is the best program that they have. So Cuomo Primetime finished but behind 14 other Fox News shows and 10 programs on MSNBC. Anderson Cooper 360 finished 26th, and CNN Tonight with Don Lemon finished 35th. So they are completely, totally in the tank. And I think one of the reasons is that they just beat these certain liberal drums incessantly, including the issue of abortion, and they're having some success with that. And, you know, they're the pro-abortion crowd, the pro-death crowd, making some advances. Our Reed report today, Jeff telling me there's some thing in Illinois that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, and it's not good news. The bill, HB 25, is, it liberalizes the state abortion laws and declares abortion as a fundamental right. But it goes a little farther than that. The bill also repeals language that explicitly protects parents from having to be forced to pay for abortions that their daughter may have had, even without their consent. So this is raising a lot of issues. The language was in there originally, but the what do they call that? The sponsor of the bill saw that in there and pulled that out. He said that he didn't want that in there when he was questioned about it.
Didn't want the parental language pulled.
Yeah, he wanted, there was parental language in there protecting parents from having.
He didn't want that in there.
He pulled that out of there, and when he was questioned about it, it's Democrat Representative Kelly Cassidy. And he was asked why it was removed. He said because treating abortion care is like treating any other health care, is basically what he said. So he's not pulling it out of there.
Well, and again, I mean, they're Illinois treating pregnancy as if it was an illness. And, you know, think about that. I guess in Illinois, parents have no right to give their consent to an abortion.
Right, but they could be forced to pay for it.
But they could be forced to pay for it.
Yep.
So that's just nuts. Well, that's Illinois for you, and that's the left. You know, and again, that goes back to what I've said before. Ladies and gentlemen, it's revival or it's civil war. Those are the only two choices our nation has. We are either going to experience revival or we are going to lapse into civil war, because the divide now, the chasm is so great between the pro-life and the pro-death sides, between the pro-family side and the pro-gay. There's no longer any middle ground. There's no longer common ground. So we have to hang in there. These people have to be defeated, ladies and gentlemen. If our country is going to have a future, we have to defeat these people in political combat, in political battle. Well, you know, one of the things we've talked about is how the media, they must have somebody that generates these memos, these talking point memos, somewhere in some subterranean cavern. The memo goes out. Okay, everybody, here's the talking point of the day. Now let's listen. This goes back to last week. I saved this one in the can just for today, but apparently the Talking Snake media got the memo in the middle of last week. Let's listen. Clip R2.
Good evening, and once again, the world is learning just how easy it is to get under the skin of the most powerful man on earth.
Explain something. Why does Nancy Pelosi get under the president's skin so much?
Pelosi has an uncanny ability to get under Trump's skin.
Extremely effective at getting under his skin.
Nancy Pelosi clearly got under his skin.
Pretty clear that she gets under his skin.
She has this unique quality of getting under the president's skin.
Pelosi, for some reason, gets under his skin.
She gets under the president's skin. I think it is clear that Nancy Pelosi gets under his skin.
She does get under his skin.
See, it gets under his skin.
That getting under the president's skin
very clearly got it under his skin.
She gets under his skin.
She knows that this kind of language is likely to get under his skin.
The charge of a presidential cover-up landed right underneath Donald Trump's skin.
Pelosi got under his skin.
How can this be about her getting under his skin and the signs were already prepared? Those two things don't match.
So here's what's going on. The speaker's really getting under the president's skin.
So that's the memo that went out. How easy it is to get under President Trump's skin, and all of a sudden, before you knew it, by the day is out, everybody is using that expression.
I think mainstream media is getting under everybody's skin.
Yeah.
I think that's more truthful.
Yeah, I think that's right. Now, here's a heads up. Donnie Deutsch, this is clip number 7. We got a new expression here that we're going to start hearing from the media. Trust me, this impeachment train is going nowhere. This impeachment train, Remember that scene in, I think it was the Back to the Future 3, where you got this train, railroad train, it's running, and it's heading for a bridge over this canyon, only the bridge is out. There's no, so unless Marty finds some way to stop that thing, it's just going right into the ravine. Well, that's where the impeachment train is going. They realize it's a loser. They've even focus grouped impeachment as a word, and Democrats don't like it. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to do it. You know, you look at where the stats are in terms of impeachment. There's 432 members of the House of Representatives. About 51 of them, including only one Republican, are actually for impeachment. There's no way that you get impeachment with numbers like that. Just is never going to happen. It's got to be bipartisan. You got to get 67 votes to convict in the Senate. That means that both parties have to have a significant amount of distaste for what the president is doing. That's just not there. President Trump's approval ratings, according to, I think it was according to a Harvard CPS poll, at 48%. His approval rating is the highest it's been in 2 years. So the more they dump on Donald Trump, the more they try to vilify him, the more his approval ratings go up. It's just crazy. So his approval ratings, and you just cannot, there's no way you're going to be able to impeach him with those kind of things. Going back to when President Nixon, he was either going to be impeached if he didn't resign. If he didn't resign, he was going to be impeached. Congress voted 410-4 to investigate Nixon for possible impeachment. 410-4. Now that's what you call a decisive consensus. So anyway, here's Donnie Deutsch. He's recognizing that the impeachment term, that ain't going to work. We got to come up with something new, and Donnie Deutsch has found it.
We know he's an unindicted co-conspirator with the Southern District. We know we're going to be looking at his taxes, his philanthropies. You, Nancy Pelosi, you, Jerry Nadler, you, Adam Schiff, you, Elijah Cummings, start and initiate the Trump criminal investigations. Impeachment may be part of it. Brand him a criminal already. You already had an AG that has gone on a branding exercise. The head of the judicial system went on a branding exercise successfully. The Congress needs to rebrand impeachment the Trump criminal investigations. Have him saying, I'm not a criminal. That is the simple winning fight. Rebrand it. Impeachment is not the right word for you, but you have a fight. It's the Trump criminal investigations.
All right, that's the new expression, and I'm predicting this is going to be the wave of the future. They're going to use the phrase criminal investigations, criminal inquiries. Donald Trump is a criminal. That term is going to become the term of art among our friends on the left. Now let's drop back to clip number 3. Pete Buttigieg, I'm not going to call him his husband. That's what Pete calls him, but he can't be. Biblically, it's not possible for one guy to be the husband of another guy. So I'm just going to simply refer to him as his male lover, as his homosexual lover. That's who this Chasten Buttigieg guy is. He is Pete Buttigieg's homosexual lover. Now, the narrative out there is that Pete Buttigieg's homosexual lover came from a family that was brutal on him. They shunned him. They judged him. They condemned him. They basically cut him off from the family. Unfortunately, his brother is still alive, grew up under the same household, same roof, grew up in the same family. Laura Ingraham interviewed him on her program, and here's what he had to say about what Chasten Buttigieg, the environment in which he grew up, and listen to who became the member of the family that actually was shunned by the family.
But to answer your question, absolutely not. That is just, it couldn't be further from the truth. There has absolutely never been any amount of shunning him from the family. I love my brother dearly. I want the best for him. I want the best for Pete. And this story, this narrative of the family shunning him from the family just couldn't be further from the truth. I didn't sign up for this. The only reason I'm here is for the truth to prevail. If it was that easy, that would have already been done. To be honest, our family dynamics has been rocky for 9 to 10 years. When I became a born-again believer in Jesus Christ, the family dynamic dramatically shifted. If there was any shunning, to be honest with you, just to share the truth, that would be myself being shunned over my brother. What better story to have this rags to riches, to make it look like he came from a mayor of a Midwestern town going for the presidency. His husband, who supposedly, according to the Washington Post, had been shunned from the family, had been kicked out of the family, who supposedly was homeless, which we have no memory of that ever happening.
Well, you're saying he was never homeless?
To my memory, there's absolutely no recollection of him being homeless. There's no shunning. There's absolutely no. My family
is anything that he said true?
More.
Is anything that he said true in about your family dynamic, and from your opinion?
And from my opinion, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Whole thing is spun out of whole cloth in order to create a sympathetic narrative, as he got hooked up with a candidate for the presidency. The only shunning that happened was he was the one that was shunned when he came to faith in Christ. I want to try to wedge in some clips from Bill Barr's interview with CBS. This stuff is just rich. Wish I had more time to go through these. But this is Jan Crawford. She's the legal analyst at CBS, interviewing Bill Barr, the Attorney General. It aired on Sunday. Let's listen to clip 9.
You said in recent Senate testimony, this is not launching an investigation of the FBI. Frankly, to the extent there were any issues at the FBI, I do not view it as a problem that's endemic to the FBI. I think there was probably a failure among a group of leaders there at the upper echelon.
That's right.
So there was probably a failure among a group of leaders there at the upper echelon.
Right. In other words, I don't believe this is a problem, rife through the bureau.
But what suggests to you there was a failure in the upper echelon at the FBI?
Because I think the activities were undertaken by a small group at the top, which is one of probably the mistakes that has been made, instead of running this as a normal bureau investigation or counterintelligence investigation. It was done by the executives at the senior level.
So a small cabal, just as we have suggested from the beginning, a small cabal of co-conspirators at the top of the pyramid in the Department of Justice. They're the ones that are responsible. And Bill Barr is anxious for us to understand, and I believe what he says here, this is not a problem that's epidemic in the FBI. This is only at the senior level where this problem exists. All right, clip number 10, let's listen to this.
When you're dealing with official government contact, intent is frequently a murky issue. I'm not suggesting people did what they did necessarily because of conscious, nefarious motives. Sometimes people can convince themselves that what they're doing is in the higher interest, the better good. They don't realize that what they're doing is really antithetical to the democratic system we have. They start viewing themselves as the guardians of the people that are more informed and sensitive than everybody else. And they can, in their own mind, they can have those kinds of motives. And sometimes they can look at evidence and facts through a biased prism that they themselves don't realize, that something objectively, as applied as a neutral principle across the board, really shouldn't be the standard used in the case, but because they have a particular bias, they don't see that.
All right, so William Barr sees things just the way you and I do. They're biased. They don't see it. I'm not going to be as kind toward their motives as Bill Barr is. I think they knew exactly what they were doing. I think they knew what they were doing was wrong. I think their motives were twisted and crooked from Jump Street. But that's what can happen. You get in a close circle. The only people you talk to agree with you. They egg you on, and you can wind up doing stuff that you may later live to regret. Let's drop down to clip number 12, Rob. If we, do I have time to play this? Oh, I'm a minute off again. I got to remember where I'm at. So I guess that's it. We'll save a couple of more sound bites for Bill Barr for tomorrow. That's it for today. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, to bow low before God, stand tall before man, stand in the gap, and never forget, my bride has limpid pools of liquid amber for eyes. See you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.